Hey, everybody. Glad that you are all here tonight. It's going to be awesome. So glad that you're here. Thank you for your patience. Let's go.
Spoken of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
Welcome, everybody. Glad to be back. Was away for a couple days. I'll explain why here in a few minutes, but glad to be back with all of you. The way we do these streams, for those of you who may not be familiar, I give my opening remarks, which is just what I'm going to talk about for tonight. And then from there, I do a roll call where I call you all out as I see you, names and locations. We find out who is on the other side of the camera. And then from there, I answer your questions for the remainder of the show. So if there's something you would like me to talk about in the second half of the show, send a super chat on YouTube or a Rumble rant on Rumble. If you're watching on Facebook, you got to go to YouTube or Rumble in order to send a question. Wow, everybody. I'll just jump right into it. We did something amazing. I was up all night, Wednesday to Thursday, right? The Wednesday night, Thursday morning, I was up all night. Last night, Peter Coffin was up all night. And I just want to thank everyone who helped us pull off what we just did, the project that the Center for Political Innovation just released, the big drop I've been telling you all about. It's out there now. And thank you to all our members who recorded themselves, to everyone who was involved in the editing process, to Peter Coffin, who's a brilliant filmmaker, to, Funky and John and Gabby and Ethan and Mike and Jesse and oh my goodness, I'm going to forget some people and Denver and wow, so many people. Noah, thank you to Noah. Wow. We did something really amazing. If you haven't seen it yet, we made a letter to Donald Trump. Noah, Peter Coffin, Briggy, Gabby, Ethan, Mike, Jesse. Wow. Gavin was definitely part of it. Amazing work, Gavin. Tremendous work, Gavin. We did something really, really amazing. So if you haven't seen it, this is it. I'm just going to show it right now because I am just astounded at what we did as an organization. This was not an individual effort. The letter was written, it was edited. Many members recorded themselves, as you will see. And in addition to that, huge amount of editing was done mainly by Peter Coffin because he's a genius. This is our letter to Donald Trump. We released it today. It came out this morning. Connor was definitely part of it. Connor did an amazing job. Connor out in Denver. Wow. Here we go.
Official, CNN projects that Donald Trump has been elected president.
Donald Trump has won the state of Wisconsin, which means he is the winner of this race and will return to the White House.
A sweeping and stunning victory, unlike any in our history.
Donald Trump has won the presidency for a second time.
Donald Trump, a convicted felon who survived 2 assassination attempts, making a remarkable comeback to become the next president of the United States.
He's so evil! Nazi! Break out the boat!
It was a terrible night.
Look what happened. Is this crazy?
Dear President Donald Trump, we've all spent the last year being told Donald Trump can never win again.
But as we went and spoke with regular voters,
that's never been what they seem to think.
As we predicted, you won.
Because the system that dominates the world, the system these people live in, is in complete crisis.
Imperialism, the old order of the world ruled by big banks and monopolies, is becoming more unstable by the day.
It is relentlessly driving working families' living standards down
and pushing us towards new wars.
Americans voted for you because you promised peace.
You promised peace.
You promised peace.
They said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars.
Americans voted for you because you promised swift government action to improve their lives.
Together we can truly make America great again for all Americans. African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, Arab American, Muslim American. Success is going to bring us together.
Americans voted for you because you promised to protect our freedoms.
We want to have security. We want to have things be good, safe. I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve.
Americans voted for you because you promised to stand up to the rich and powerful.
You promised to stand up to the rich and powerful.
To the rich and the greedy.
You promised to stand up to the rich and powerful.
And put the people's needs first.
And put our needs first.
I want you to imagine how much better our future can be if we declare independence from the elites who led us from one financial and foreign policy disaster to another.
While many exclusively focus on the negative realities of a political campaign, we remember your Quantum Leap speech, where you rolled out some extraordinary ideas for completely rebuilding this country.
Past generations of Americans pursued big dreams and daring projects that once seemed absolutely impossible. They transformed American life with the interstate highway system, magnificent it was, and they launched a vast network of satellites into orbit all around the Earth. But today, our country has lost its boldness. Under my leadership, we will get it back in a very big way. Our objective will be a quantum leap in the American standard of living.
We're writing this letter to let you know who we are.
We are the Center for Political Innovation.
The Center for Political Innovation.
The Center for Political Innovation.
We are the Center for Political Innovation.
The Center for Political
We
Innovation.
are the Center for Political
The
Innovation.
Center for Political
The
Innovation.
Center for Political Innovation.
We are the Center for Political Innovation.
We're innovationist
And anti-imperialist.
We are patriotic Americans
who want to see the power of Wall Street and London defeated.
And a whole new America rebuilt on new foundations.
We exposed Kamala Harris and how dangerous she was back in 2020 with a book called Kamala Harris and the Future of America.
The book was on sale for 4 years without incident.
Then the very day she became the nominee, on July 22nd, Amazon banned our book without explanation.
They did not want people to hear the truth about her awful record. They did not want people to see how she was tied to the regime change apparatus and how she had been carefully groomed by the malevolent forces that ran the Hillary Clinton State Department.
Amazon banned our book for 7 days. Banning our book backfired. Many thousands of copies sold from July to November as people hungered for the truth about the woman we called the most dangerous presidential candidate in history.
We are proud to have spread truth about Kamala Harris and who she really is.
In the final month before the election, we were on the streets of New York City with a huge banner that said, "Only peace can make America great again."
We highlighted what we consider to be your greatest moment in your first term as president when you offered a hand of friendship to North Korea.
Our organization gives voice to what the overwhelming majority of Americans want.
Jobs, schools, economic development, and, most of all, an end to all the wars.
While many of your biggest supporters are tied to Israel, as a matter of basic human morality, you must stop the slaughter in Gaza.
As the president, you will have the power to cut off the money. The $18 million of our tax money that goes into Israel every day is $18 million too much.
You have the power to stand up to Netanyahu and the Israel lobby.
And the overwhelming majority of your supporters will back you in doing so.
You can end the war in Ukraine as well as you have promised to do.
Russia is ready to sit down with you and make a deal.
You can lift the sanctions that are devaluing the US dollar.
You can cut off the billions of dollars in tax money that has been dumped into death and destruction.
There's an explosion of economic growth happening in Eurasia right now.
China's Belt and Road Initiative, Russia's Eurasian Economic Union, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and BRICS
are all full of new wealth being generated as people rise out of poverty with electrification, railway, and new living conditions.
America can get in on the action, and you can create a legacy of growth and prosperity by pushing to make it happen.
That money and technological progress doesn't need to be for everyone but us.
A share can come to our communities across the heartland and south that have been devastated by the globalist monopolies.
America can join the new world of growth and optimism and leave behind the dying world of globalist bankers.
A big step toward making that happen would be fulfilling the vision first put forward by one of Abraham Lincoln's advisors.
Build the Peace Bridge, connecting Alaska to the Russian Far East. Building that bridge over the Bering Strait would create millions of jobs and connect the United States to the wave of economic expansion and happening in that region.
You also have the power to step in and protect Americans from the deep state.
You can make Facebook, YouTube, and other social media outlets stop censoring Americans who speak up.
You can free Ross Ulbricht. You can free Leonard Peltier.
We have paid particular attention to the Uhuru Three, Penny Hess, Jesse Neville, and Omali Yeshitela.
Tucker Carlson highlighted their case in his program.
As part of the liberal Russia, Russia, Russia hysteria, they got charged with being foreign agents for their work building economic development among black people in Florida and Missouri.
You can pardon them for the absurd conspiracy conviction they received after being acquitted of the primary charge of being Russian agents.
You can repeal the absurd Foreign Agents Registration Act, a vaguely worded law
used to prosecute those who want to change U.S. foreign policy or do business overseas.
We know you can't do this alone. If you do, as you have promised, and clash with the deep state and the big monopolies,
you'll soon realize that there is one ally you desperately need: the American people.
The bulk of the population, those who voted for you because they just can't take it anymore, need to be pushed into action.
The American people are like a sleeping lion that can awaken and roar louder than ever when the time is right.
The country needs a mass movement. It's happened before, and it will happen again.
We defeated the British Empire. We smashed the slavocracy of plantation owners. We built the labor unions and won women the right to vote. We ended the Vietnam War, and we destroyed legal segregation.
The changes that the overwhelming majority of the American people want will not come about as a result of some savior in the White House.
No matter how adept of a political leader you might be.
The masses of people in their millions are the makers of history.
And it will take an upsurge of democratic participation to bring about what this country really needs.
A government of action.
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 To fight for working families.
You are in a very important position as arguably the most powerful person in the world right now.
President of the United States.
We urge you to stop the emerging low-wage police state. We urge you to stop the march towards World War III.
We urge you to help energize and mobilize a population to assert their will over the greed of the rich and powerful.
We're building a movement of anti-imperialists here in America.
People who love their neighborhoods, cities, and communities and see that protecting them is more urgent now than ever.
We consistently look to the future optimistically and see many promising possibilities in your re-election.
However, as with all politicians, especially presidents, we cannot and will not offer blind support.
Our goals are peace and prosperity for all, and we won't hesitate to criticize you if you stand in the way.
Millions and millions of working families are counting on you, Donald.
Not just here in the U.S., but around the world.
Find the strength within yourself and your relationship with God to be the hero the world desperately needs.
It may not be your first instinct, and it may even fly in the face of much of what you've said, believed, and even promised.
But it is a surefire way to find your name imprinted in the history books for centuries.
We train our members to understand the world and how it works. More importantly, how to change things.
You will hear a lot from us in the next 4 years.
And if and when you stand up to the forces of darkness and empire, we will always have your back. See you at the inauguration.
So that was our message to President Donald Trump. And thank you, Timoshenko. I knew Timoshenko was in it. Noah was in it. Gabby was in it. Briggy was in it. Funky Briggy was in it. Wow. I mean, Connor was in it. Denver was in it. Jesse was in it. Wow. Mike was in it. Man, Gavin was in it. John McCarthy in Chicago was in it. Wow. Peter Coffin was in it. Yeah, it was amazing. So right now we need to get this message to as many people as possible, right? This is an opportunity where you can stay at home. You don't have to go to anything. You don't have to donate any money. You can send this to your relatives. All right. You can send this to all your relatives and say, hey, I don't usually talk to you all about politics. Maybe you're a big fan of Trump. Maybe you're not, but this is a message you need to hear. You can send the Twitter video to your relatives right now. On Twitter, this has already been retweeted by Scott Ritter, by Kim Iverson, by George Galloway. At this point on Twitter, it's got roughly 40,000 views already. So there you can send them the Twitter video and just send it to everyone you know. And we also have a YouTube video, right? It's also on YouTube. So you can send the YouTube video from the CPI YouTube page. You can send the YouTube video. And again, you can send it out on YouTube. And the whole text of the letter and the embedded video link is on the CPI website. And so if you want to send the text of the letter, we sent it out in an email this morning to our email list, and it's on the CPI website. You go to news. It's the first news item is our letter to Donald Trump. We need to get this everywhere right now. This needs to be on full blast. This is the message that the American people need to hear. The people who didn't vote for Trump need to hear it. The people who did vote for Trump need to hear it. The people who are confused and don't know what to think need to hear it. This is what the American people need to hear. We talk about all the important stuff in this letter. We talk about the Uhuru case. We talk about Ross Ulbricht and Leonard Peltier. We talk about the Peace Bridge connecting to Alaska. We talk about the bombing of Gaza and the plight of the Palestinians. We talk about the hope of peace with Russia. We talk about the new economy emerging in the East. We talk about the history of American struggles and how the American people have to be awakened. We need a mass movement. That's the only way we're going to defeat the power of imperialism and the big monopolies. This video has everything in it, packed into 11 minutes, beautifully done, beautiful sequences. Thank you to everyone who made it. And now we have to make it count, right? We made it. We did it. It was very difficult to do. We worked very hard to get it out there. And thank you to everyone who worked hard on it. You guys have no idea how hard Peter Coffin worked. I mean, he stayed up late all night, and then he went and got dental work. He got his wisdom teeth removed after staying up all night. I mean, Peter Coffin deserves a medal for how hard he worked and how skilled he is. And every person who worked on this, Timoshenko, Connor, Gabby, Noah, Mike, Ethan, John, Jesse, Gavin. I mean, this is, Briggy, Gabby, this is an astounding feat. We did something amazing. Denver did amazing. I mean, this was really something special. This was really, really something special. Innovationism as a political movement is marching ahead. Now we have to make it count. Send the video to your relatives, send the video to your family members, send the video to your coworkers, to your classmates. If you're in college, send it to your professors. Say, hey, I know we talk about different political issues in this class. There's this video that went viral over the weekend. It's an interesting perspective, not your typical Trump perspective, but supporting Trump. Send it to them. Just get this to everyone. Everyone must see this video. Everyone needs to see this video now. This is urgent. It's urgent. It is absolutely urgent. Our organization is swinging into action. We are swinging into action as a group. We have a new website. We have a new ideology called innovationism. We've moved past trying to argue about what communism really is. We're done doing that. We're innovationists. We're anti-imperialists. And now we have this amazing letter to Trump, this amazing, amazing letter to Trump. And we are on fire and we are marching ahead. And the amount of dedication, the amount of collectivism, collective vision, and cooperation, wow, we are moving forward. But I need you all to step up to the plate. We got to just, full speed ahead. I have a list of people that I am emailing and calling about this. Some of them are people I haven't spoken to in years. Some of them are people that I fought with, believe it or not, a couple years ago or 3 or 4 years ago. Doesn't matter. I'm still sending them this video, right? We just have to get this to everybody, right? I went through my list. I got about half of the people that I needed to reach out to with this video. I reached out to about half of them, but I still got more people to go, and that's fine. I'm going to spend the whole weekend emailing this to people and contacting people. We need to have a full court press with this. We need to just go all in. And this is part of our 90-day action plan for the Center for Political Innovation, part of our reinvention leading up to the convention in Chicago next summer. And now is the time to make it count, and I'm very excited. So, as you all know, this is all leading toward the inauguration. And I just found out today we are definitely having an event in Washington, D.C. the evening of the inauguration. We are going to be in D.C. for the inauguration. And then the evening of the inauguration, we are having an in-person press conference and political rally event at a hotel near the White House in Washington, D.C. I'm in the process of reserving it. It's happening. It is happening, folks. CPI is having a rally in Washington, D.C. on Inauguration Day. We're going to be in the streets of D.C. with our big, huge banner, and a new banner that we're getting. We're going to have one banner that'll be, the Only Peace Can Make America Great Again banner that's in the video. And we're also getting a new banner made, and we are going to do a lot of outreach to the people that come to the Capitol to support Trump. And then that evening, we are having an event in Washington, D.C. That's happening, right? I spoke to the hotel today. It's happening, right? Details to be announced very shortly. It's happening, folks. We are building a movement. We are building a movement. We are not building an internet fandom. We are building a movement. And we have people who want to work with us, allies, friends, people who agree with what we're urgently trying to accomplish right now, which is stopping the low-wage police state and stopping the danger of a new world war, the march toward World War III. We must oppose it on all fronts. We are reaching out to anyone who's willing to work with us, and we have no interest in, fighting for the spotlight with communists. We're innovationists now. And for those of you that are interested, we're not pushing it very hard. I did write a book. I did publish a book that came out a couple days ago, a very short book called To the Marxists, A Long Live Innovationism, explaining why we no longer call ourselves communists. And that book is on Amazon, and we're not pushing it very hard because it's aimed at communists, and we don't really want to talk to communists anymore. But if you're interested, if you're somebody who's familiar with Marxist ideology, you'll be interested to read this, because in the book we talk about why we're not communists anymore, what we hold on to, which is the revolutionary essence of Marxism, Leninism, anti-imperialism, belief in economic growth toward the ultimate stage of abundance and all of that. But also where we disagree around dialectical materialism and where we disagree in terms of democratic centralism and on a lot of different things. So if you're somebody who comes from the communist tradition and you want to know what we have to say, by all means, get a copy of the book. We're not pushing it too hard because it's not our focus. We are done trying to play the game of communism. We're not communists anymore. We're just not. We are anti-imperialists, and we have entered a new stage called innovationism. And we believe in economic growth. We are going to defeat imperialism, and we are going to build. We are going to build. But now we just need to full speed ahead, focus on what we're doing. That is where we need to be focusing now. Someone on Rumble said, damn, that was good. Yes, it was. I am so damn proud of what we did with this video. I cannot tell you. I'm proud of what we were able to accomplish collectively. None of us in the group could have done anything like this by ourselves. This was a collective effort, and this is why organizations exist. This is why we need an organization. We need comrades with whom we can innovate and create beautiful, creative projects that awaken the masses with political education and political innovation. We need to exist as a group because no one else is doing this important work that we are doing. We are doing this, and that's why CPI must exist, and that's why CPI will continue to march forward, and that's why the campaign of psychological warfare directed against our organization is going to fail. Right? I'm not going to get into detail, but there's certain comments that are left on these videos and stuff like that. I know where you're being told to do this from. I know who's giving you instructions, and I know what you're doing. And it's not going to work. CPI will continue to march forward. We are marching forward, and this is just the latest step. Now, the next big thing that is happening is Black Friday, which is a week from today. Black Friday. So Thanksgiving is the traditional American holiday. After Thanksgiving, they have what's called Black Friday, which is a big shopping day, the first day of the Christmas shopping season. Most young people have it off of school. Many people have it off of work. Black Friday, we are going to have an all-day 8-hour stream on this channel. And the focus of that stream will be a membership drive. It's time to rejoin the Center for Political Innovation, right? We have not been able to collect dues since July, since we liquidated our nonprofit. Well, now we are collecting dues, and now it is time for people to rejoin, and we're going to have a membership drive, an 8-hour all-day membership drive. It'll be live, right? Now, I know I do long video premieres like on Sundays and stuff. No, this will be a live 8-hour stream. It'll be on Peter Coffin's channel. It'll be on my channel, maybe a couple other channels. We're going to go for 8 hours, and we are going to build. We aim to have 200 members total by the end of the day. Right now, we have about 165 people that consider themselves CPI members, but very few of them have so far rejoined. Right, because many people, they haven't gotten around to rejoining now that membership is open once again. Well, Black Friday is the day to join. If you can join sooner than that, that's fine too. But Black Friday is our membership drive. It'll be on this channel all day. I'll start out in the morning. I'll do the arm thing where I exercise, and we're going to be on this channel, and we are going to be pushing for people to rejoin the Center for Political Innovation. We aim to be a 200-member organization by the end of the day on Black Friday, and we're hoping that the buzz created by this letter introducing ourselves, the new website, and all of that will help us to reach that goal. And if you know anybody who likes what we have to say, you need to reach out to them. One thing that is fair is that there are some people that are nervous to join CPI because they're afraid they're going to be obligated to do something, right? Well, joining means you pay dues, right? Now, obviously, there is another level of membership for people who become active, but that's not by joining the website, right? And so, if you want to support us and all you ever want to do is pay dues, that's fine. That's totally fine, and if you would like to step toward becoming a full active member, that's fine as well. But we do need as many people to join the organization. And Black Friday is going to be the day that we go all day, and we're going to have members in Chicago. They're having a gathering, and they're going to join the stream from Chicago. It's going to be awesome. We got people around the country that are in CPI that are going to talk about what it's like to be in the group and what it means. We're going to go over a lot of the accomplishments of the organization. We are going to take the entire day, basically. It'll be an 8-hour stream on Black Friday. And that stream, that day, Black Friday, will be all dedicated to rebuilding the dues-paying membership of our organization. We're hoping that the buzz created around this letter will lay the foundations for a very strong Black Friday stream in which we reach our dues-paying membership goals. It's very exciting. Now, after that, I am headed to Florida, not for vacation, but to go to court with the Uhuru 3. They are due to be sentenced on December 16th, which is a Monday. So I will be flying to Florida that weekend. I will be at their rally in Florida, in Tampa, in St. Petersburg, at their rally. Again, calling for them not to get any jail time. And I will be going to the courthouse with them on December 16th. And I will be in the courtroom because that's what we have to do. We have to stand in solidarity. An injury to one is an injury to all. And what they did to the Uhuru movement, targeting them for doing the work of economic empowerment in the Black community while pushing an anti-imperialist message, standing with Russia, standing with China and Venezuela and all the countries around the world like Iran that oppose imperialism. We have to stand with them. It is our duty to stand with them. So I'm headed to Florida, Tampa, Florida, in mid-December. Then the inauguration is coming up. Now, folks, we have a lot of ideas about what we can do for the inauguration. And a lot of that depends on how many people join, right? Because people who join pay dues. A lot of that depends on how much money we can raise, because people who, raising money enables us to do more. But we have already, it looks like we basically already rented the hotel. I need to sign some paperwork. We're having a rally in DC, an indoor event, press conference rally that evening. That's happening, right? We weren't sure, but it's happening. In addition to that, we have a lot of ideas about what we can do in DC at the inauguration. One idea that we obviously had is we're obviously going to bring our banners, our 2 huge banners, right? This is the banner that is in the video. From
July to November.
We're obviously going to bring the banner. The Only Peace Can Make America Great Again banner. We're obviously going to bring We're obviously going to bring that. We're bringing this banner. There's Briggy with the banner. We're obviously going to bring that banner. There'd be no way we could not bring that banner to DC. So we're bringing that banner, but we're bringing another banner that will emphasize the Peace Bridge, right? The Peace Bridge connecting to Alaska, right? The bridge over the Bering Sea. We're going to get another banner. It won't look like this. It'll look much nicer. I just made that on a whim. But we're going to get a much nicer banner, same size, 8 feet by 12 feet, promoting the Peace Bridge, right? We're doing that. Then one thing that we would like to do is we would like to print, right? We have this lovely pamphlet, Do You Believe in Growth? We would like to make a special pamphlet for Trump supporters. And I have a good printer that I work with in New York City. We would like to make a special short pamphlet with Trump and Kim shaking hands and an image of the Peace Bridge over it. And we would like to distribute that in bulk to Trump supporters by the thousands. Bring 1,000, 2,000 copies of a nice anti-imperialist glossy booklet and just hand it out to all the Trumpers that are there to watch Trump get sworn in. The other thing that we would like to do is that, there is a Republican newspaper in Washington, D.C. That is very wide circulation. It's called the Washington Times. And is widely read by Republicans. The Washington Post is owned by Jeff Bezos. It leans Democrat. But there is another newspaper called the Washington Times. And we are now exploring the possibility, if we can raise the money, right? And I had my first meeting about it tonight. I had a meeting. We are planning, if possible, if we can get the money together. I mean, it's all if, right? If enough people join CPI, if we have the money, we are going to get the text of our letter, the text of our letter, and we are going to print it as a full-page ad in the Washington Times, right? They have a circulation of thousands of people, every conservative, every Republican in the whole D.C. area, every member of Congress from the Republican Party, Donald Trump's entire staff, they all read the Washington Times. And so we are thinking that if we can get the funds together, we will buy a full-page ad in the Washington Times with the text of our letter to Donald Trump in it. That's what we're ready to do. And I think we can do it. I think we can get the funds together. I think we can do it. I'm thinking we can do it. It's just a matter of how much money we can raise, how many people join CPI and all of that. And that can advertise our event that we have that night. And maybe we'll get a good crowd of people to come to our event in DC. So that's what we've got planned for the next, this was our 90-day plan. I flew out to Oklahoma and Peter Coffin was on the Zoom, and I sat down with two of our members and we worked out a plan in Oklahoma. Step number 1 was redoing the website. Boom, done. Step number 2 was reincorporating so people could pay their dues. Boom, done. Step number 3 was this letter, and we did it. We did it. The letter is done. Then I'm headed to Florida. After that, all in for the inauguration. And we're thinking glossy magazines to hand out, a totally new booklet dedicated to Donald Trump's presidency and anti-imperialism, totally new booklet, not this one, but in the same style, glossy pamphlet, 2 big banners, full-page ad in the Washington Times with the text of our letter. We're doing it, folks. We are doing it. Now is the time for anti-imperialists to swing into action. We have no choice. We have absolutely no choice. Look what they did to Matt Gaetz, right? Matt Gaetz, who is an anti-war guy. He's an anti-deep state, anti-FBI guy. He was going to be Donald Trump's pick for attorney general. And they ousted him, right? They basically threatened him. You know what I mean? They said, look, we don't know all the details, and the details are very complicated. I started reading a different thread, but if Matt Gaetz had been there, that would have been a great victory for anti-imperialism. It would have been a great victory for, it would have been so much better. It would have been, and now Matt Gaetz has been ousted, but Tulsi Gabbard is still in the running. And if she can be the director of national intelligence, that would be a huge, huge victory. And we need to be all in for Tulsi Gabbard. This is the moment. This is a turning point for our country. And we need to be there. We absolutely need to be there. We cannot. This is not the time to retreat. This is not the time to sit back and say, oh, they're all the same. They are not all the same, folks. They are not all the same. There is an intense division in the ruling class right now. And the masses of people are angry at the FBI, and they are angry at the Pentagon and the low-wage police state. I don't know if you saw, but it is being reported at this point, not confirmed, that Elon Musk and Trump have been making a deal with Russia to end the Ukraine war this entire time, and that the head of NATO is currently at Mar-a-Lago working out the details with Donald Trump. Biden's escalating the war and shooting missiles and giving them long-range missiles, and it looks like Elon Musk and Trump have been negotiating peace with Russia, and the head of NATO was at Mar-a-Lago. This is being widely circulated. Now, we cannot confirm that it's true, but this is a rumor that is going around. InfoWars and others are claiming that this is the case, that there is peace negotiation taking place at Mar-a-Lago right now. We have an important job to do. This is an important moment, right? Sleepy Joe wants World War III. He's putting even more sanctions on Russia. He's shooting those long-range missiles. I mean, he's doing everything. But the drive for peace among the American people is high. Tulsi Gabbard is going to be the director of national intelligence, and now is the time. We cannot back down. We got to go full speed ahead. We got to step on the gas pedal. That's where we're at. These are really, really, really exciting times to be alive. They really are. I mean, it is a real honor to be alive in these times when we can change the world, right? We can have make a really big difference. We could see a new America beyond imperialism. We could see that very soon. I mean, this is the moment that we're in, but we have to seize the moment. And again, I've been using this as what we don't want to be. I believe in you, and you have way too much potential to be old man yells at cloud. You really do, right? You don't want to be that. Most people on the internet, that's what they are, right? They're just old man yells at cloud. You don't want to be old man yells at cloud. You want to make a difference. You want to be part of our organization. You want to be part of bringing peace to the Korean Peninsula. You want to be part of building that peace bridge and connecting America with the new economy that is emerging right now in Asia, and putting economic distance between the United States and NATO and the Atlanticist dying imperialist global order. You want to be part of ending the war in Ukraine and getting justice for the peoples of Donbass that have been bombed and attacked for so long. You want to be part of preventing any more slaughter in Gaza and bringing an end to it in a sensible way and in a way that could actually win, right? This is our moment. We need to build a real axis of resistance to imperialism within the United States, because at the end of the day, it is in the economic interest of the overwhelming majority of people. The working class, the small business owners, even the majority of the rich would benefit from breaking us out of this dying international financial system of fictitious capital, fake wealth, greed, and usury. And now is the moment to go full speed into the new world. Now is the moment to be serious anti-imperialists. If there ever was a time to be a serious anti-imperialist, that time is now. Now is the time to build an anti-imperialist movement in America. And you can do it. And the Peace Bridge is going to be a big part of that. The Peace Bridge will pivot the United States into the Eurasian new economy that's rising. It will enable wealth from the Russian Far East and the boom that's going on there, wealth from China's Belt and Road Initiative and Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the BRICS. It'll enable that to go to the United States. It'll make Alaska, which is not a wealthy state. Alaska is a very poor state, right? A lot of Alaska doesn't have running water still. It will enable Alaska to experience an economic boom, and it will enable Alaska to flourish, and it will pivot our economy eastward. That is what will happen. Our economy will pivot to the east and away from the Atlanticist imperialist system. We, in America, our economy will become more attached to the future and less attached to the dying British Empire system of the past. And that is why the Peace Bridge is so important. It may seem like it's not a big deal. It's like, Caleb, what's the big deal? It's just a bridge over some water. Well, it's not just a bridge over some water, okay? The Peace Bridge lays the basis for America starting to become part of the new economy and pivoting away from the dying economy of the British Empire, imperialism, capitalism in its monopolistic stage. That is what the Peace Bridge does. It enables us to be part of the exciting new economy that is emerging. That's why it's important. That's why it is important. And that's why we need to full speed ahead push for it. It has to happen. It has to happen. We have to do it. We have to do it. And there is a division within the Trump camp. You think all the Trump people agree about Israel? Talk to Candace Owens. Talk to Nick Fuentes. They don't. You think all the Trump people agree about Tulsi Gabbard? And no, they don't, right? You think all the Trump people agree about Ukraine? Like, there are divisions within the Trump camp. And that's why it's so important that we're doing what we're doing. We're not being partisan. We're not just saying, woo, Trump. No, we're saying the good things about Trump need to be amped up more than ever. And the bad things about Trump need to be strategically and carefully criticized. Ron Paul made a very good tweet today. I don't know if you saw this. Ron Paul, the big libertarian. He said, look, right, obviously, if someone's in the country illegally, they can be deported, but you can't send the military onto the streets of the country. Now, that was a very good point, right? Ron Paul said we don't want the military to be involved in deportations, right? And he basically criticized very strategically the Libertarian Party, and the Libertarian element said Trump's idea that he's going to use the military to engage in deportations, don't do it. And it was very strategic. And they didn't, it wasn't, oh my God, you're a racist. No one's illegal. No, they just said, look, right? Obviously, you have to enforce the law. But the idea of sending the military out to remove 20 million people from the United States, no, not gonna be a good thing for the country. Very strategic. And a lot of people in the Trump camp heard that and agreed with it. I would say probably the majority of Trumpers are like, yeah, we don't need the military deporting people. Very good, right? And that means, again, if the Democrats are against it, that's not going to make a difference. Does that make a difference at all? No, they would be against Donald Trump if he, was feeding little puppies. They don't care. But when a layer of people in the Trump camp are saying, look, sending the military out for mass deportations, don't do that. Don't do that, Donald. That's important. And the Trump camp agreed. And what Nick Fuentes is doing, and what is being done by other people in the Trump camp is so important, right? This is a moment where Trump is at odds with the wealthiest and most powerful people in his class. Donald Trump's a millionaire. He's a capitalist. He's from the elite, but he is at odds with the richest and most powerful people. I think the majority of the rich people are on his side, but the richest of the rich by far, the ultra rich, the ultra monopolies, the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, the Carnegies, the Rothschilds, the big international bankers, the World Economic Forum, the British Empire elite, ExxonMobil, BP, Shell, Chevron, Bank of America, HSBC Bank, General Electric, the military contractors, they are pissed that he is in office. And Donald Trump is gearing up to fight with them, right? Tulsi Gabbard, they are really scared of Tulsi Gabbard being on the director of national intelligence, because she will be the one who briefs Trump on world events. That's going to be amazing, because Donald Trump will hear what's happening in the world from somebody who actually understands what's happening in the world, Tulsi Gabbard. Before, who was telling Donald Trump about world events? Mike Pompeo and John Bolton, two people who not only did they advise him to do very bad things like have coups and try to have a coup in Venezuela and try to and murder Qasem Soleimani, but then they stabbed him in the back. They betrayed him. But now, every day, Donald Trump will get a briefing from Tulsi Gabbard. Imagine that. You've seen, I've played on these streams, the amazing things that Tulsi Gabbard says about Syria, about Libya, about Iran, about so many countries, about Russia, about Ukraine. Imagine having Tulsi Gabbard be the person who gives Donald Trump his daily intelligence briefing. That's going to make us so much safer. The woman who's been going around raising the alarm about why World War III is not needed would be the woman who would give Donald Trump his intelligence briefing. Not one of these neocon hawks who is trying to get us into World War III, but instead a woman who has made her career as an active duty U.S. military soldier, warning about the danger of World War III. She would be the one warning Trump about intelligence. We can't pass this up. We can't afford to miss this opportunity. This is a moment. Now, what, and the fact that they're so terrified of it happening is why it needs to happen. The New York Times ran a hit piece on her. All the major outlets are losing their minds about Tulsi Gabbard being given this job. And they're saying stupid things. They're saying she's a Russian asset and she'll have access to classified information. Well, first of all, right, she's not a Russian asset. If Russia says true things and she says them also, that doesn't make her an asset. But even if she was, she already has access to classified information. She's Lieutenant Colonel Tulsi Gabbard. She was a congresswoman representing Hawaii in the U.S. House of Representatives. She already has access to classified information. Like what? Where they're just lying to you. Oh, she'll have access to classified information. She already has. What are they talking about? Right? They're just lying to you. And when people are lying to you that badly, do they think we're stupid? Do they think we're stupid that she doesn't have access to classified information already? Of course she does. They're lying to you. They're terrified that they won't be able to control the White House and that the White House will do what's best for the American people and what's best for preventing World War III and not what is best for Wall Street monopolies and the Pentagon. And that is why we need to fight for this, right? We need to fight for this, and we need to fight for it not by retweeting. I mean, retweeting helps, and please retweet the video, please email, but we need to be in the streets, and we need to build an organization. We urgently need to build an organization. And that is why the Center for Political Innovation exists, right? In a second, I mean, if you want, I will go get you the Marxist book. And, you know, I know a lot of you in this chat are from the Marxist background, and I'll address some of that. But one of the main reasons that I don't want to be calling myself a communist anymore or be part of this whole communist whatever is because it's all a huge distraction from getting done what urgently needs to be done, which is to build an anti-imperialist movement, an anti-imperialist organization in America. We need to have a building, right? That is, we are having our convention in Chicago next summer, July 12th, 2025. After that, we need to have a building in Chicago. We need to have a building, right? We're going to call it an innovation hall, is what we're going to call it. And it will be an organizing center, a building, a base of operations for organizing in the community, where there's daily events, open mics, art shows, you know, speeches, lectures, exercise classes, you name it, right? We're going to have a building in Chicago that will be an organizing center dedicated to innovationism and anti-imperialism. It's going to be amazing. We have to have a building, and we got to expand to other cities. We need to have turf. We need to have neighborhoods. If you go around the world to countries where there's a big anti-imperialist movement, everybody knows that's the anti-imperialist neighborhood. That's where the anti-imperialist movement is strong. We need to have those in America. We need to have an anti-imperialist neighborhood in Chicago. We need to have an anti-imperialist neighborhood in Los Angeles. We need to have an anti-imperialist neighborhood in Minnesota. We need to have an anti-imperialist neighborhood in New York and in the DC area. We need to have buildings that are organizing centers for this community. And we need, at this point, right, to have an operation for pushing anti-imperialist politics, bringing people in, helping people to start their own businesses and develop their own mechanisms for supporting themselves financially so that people can pay their bills and eat. And we need to build a solid block of anti-imperialism in America. There's never been a more urgent mission than what we are doing right now. And it's urgent, right? And we are marching ahead. And with this letter that came out today, with our inauguration activities, all leading to the convention next summer in Chicago, it's happening. It's happening. I mean, we're doing it, and you can be part of it. Go join the Center for Political Innovation. You can be part of it, right? You know, send our video to every member of your family, right? If any member of your family is a Trumper, you need to send them this video. I mean, there's no excuse. If you have any member of your family who voted for Donald Trump, you have no excuse not to send them this video, right? You might be able to say, well, you know, my cousins have Trump derangement syndrome. They'll get mad at me. Okay, maybe. I think you should still send it to them. But if you have a relative in your family who's a hardcore Trumper, they wear their MAGA hat, you got to send them this video. There's no excuses. You have to send them this video. Send them the YouTube link. Send them the Twitter video, send them the page on our website. You know, you got to send them this video, right? If there's anyone at your college who is a Trumper, who gets, you know, who's been canceled by their fellow students for being you're a big fat racist, you're a Trumper, oh my God, you don't want World War III with Russia, that means you must be a Nazi, right? If you know, who is that person at your college who got canceled for being a Christian or for being a Trumper, or for you know, questioning the trans thing or whatever, send them this video. They need to see this video, right? I mean, if you are a member of a religious community, if you're at a church and there's people in your church who voted for Trump or support Trump, you got to send them this video. They got to watch this video. I don't know if you saw it, right? This video has already been tweeted out by Syrian Girl, right? Syrian Girl, a well-known anti-imperialist activist in Australia. This video was tweeted out by Kim Iverson. This video was tweeted out by Scott Ritter. This video was tweeted out by George Galloway. But this video was also tweeted out, I kid you not, by Candace Taylor, who is a top Republican organizer in the state of Georgia, right? Candace Taylor, who hosts the podcast Jesus, Guns, and Babies, top Republican leader in the state of Georgia, has been smeared and canceled. You know, she tweeted this video out. Folks, it's happening. We are doing it, right? We are doing it. We're in the game. We're in the game. For years, we weren't in the game. For years, we were just sitting there going, well, we're the real communists. And we were in this circle of people that were calling themselves communists and fighting with each other and all of that. I'm past that. I returned to God and returned to my Christian faith in 2015. And I've been trying to deal with the communist community. And now we're just moving straight past them. We are moving straight past them. You know, they're arguing about Trotsky. They're arguing about, you know, who's the biggest communist. And we are going to Russia and talking to Russian President Putin. We're having press conferences at the United Nations. We are sitting down with the president of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And now we are making videos, letters to Donald Trump. And those video letters are going to be printed in full-page ads, as full-page ads in the Washington Times. We're doing it. 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 Okay? And you can do it with us or not, right? And there's no pressure. If you don't want to do it, fine. Don't do it with us. But don't stand in the way. That's what I'm telling you to do, because it's time to do it. It's time to do it. Get this letter to everyone. Anyone you know. If you have a relative who maybe they're anti-Trump, but they're also anti-war, say, hey, you don't even have to tell them you know anything about CPI. You can just say, some people that I know were sharing this video. I don't know what to think of it. What do you think? Right? Send it to them. You can even give it deniability when you send it to them, right? Say, you know, I don't know what to think about. Isn't this crazy? Say that, right? Or, you know, maybe there's somebody you know who's super woke and loves Leonard Peltier, right? They wouldn't agree with anything else in the video, but say, hey, isn't it interesting this group of Trumpers was supporting Leonard Peltier? And send it to them and see what they say, right? Find an angle. Find an angle to send this video to everyone that you possibly can. This is CPI's introduction to the world, right? It's a letter to Donald Trump. It's a letter to Donald Trump, but it's also a letter to the American people, right? And that's interesting. You know, I was talking with different people, and this letter was shared in a Discord server today. And I heard this reaction to the letter. This is how important these conversations are. There was somebody who saw the video, and they said, this is so naive. So naive. Why would you think Donald Trump would do all these great things? And someone replied to them and they said, but isn't this exactly what his supporters need to hear? Right? It's not about whether Donald Trump is going to do all these things. We would like him to do all these things. It's about, this is what people in his movement need to hear. This is what people in his movement need to understand. This is the side of Trumpism that needs to be amped up more than ever right now. And the very person who said this was stupid and naive was like, oh, we're speaking to the masses. We're not speaking to people in a communist discourse. And they got it, right? They got it. That's called political maturity. We all learn, folks. We all learn. We all learn. I've learned, right? Being involved in politics is a process of learning. You learn things by changing things, and you change things by learning things, right? If I ever learned anything, you learn while you lead, and you lead while you learn, right? That is the process, right? And that I have learned a lot of things, but you don't learn by just sitting on the internet and arguing with other people. You learn by actually getting things done, by actually organizing. And people are learning through this video, and that's fine. I'm glad people are learning. They got it, right? They're like, oh, and they understood it. And that's what's so brilliant about this. People are learning. They're learning to have a mass orientation, that we're not trying to recruit people on the internet who think they're communists. We're trying to win over the masses of the people who are against the FBI, who are against the police state, who are against World War III, who are in favor of economic growth. That's who we're trying to win over, right? The video is called America Chose You to End the Wars, and that's true. That's why people voted for him. America did choose him to end the wars. And now Donald Trump needs to be the man that we voted for. That's what we're saying in this video, right? And and we highlight all the best things he said, his quantum leap speech and everything. This is it, right? This is it. And this is the time. Now is the time. We've got to do it. 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 So yeah, I don't quite know what to say. I guess, I will put on a song briefly. And I'm going to go through To the Marxists book a little bit. I'm going to read to you a couple passages from it and all of that. And then I'll just start taking your questions. So I'm going to put on some music now. I think I'm going to put on the 200 Years song, I think, right? Right. Do we have the 200 Years? Right. I love that 200 Years song. Do we have it? I don't think we have it. Okay, I have to download 200 Years, right? This is a song from Prairie Fire. Prairie Fire was, I always tell people, there's that amazing photo, we won't fight another rich man's war. In that, what do you call it? In that, that was for a rally that was held on the anniversary of the country, on the bicentennial. There was a rally called, for the 200-year anniversary of the United States, and the Revolutionary Communist Party and the Vietnam Veterans Against the War, which was a big organization back in those days, they organized a counter protest to it, and they wrote a song for the counter protest. A rock band called Prairie Fire wrote this rock song called 200 Years about why we need to build an anti-imperialist movement in America. And they wrote it for the anti-war protest on the anniversary of the bicentennial. So I'm going to put on 200 Years, and then I'll read you, I'll show you some from the new book, not making a huge deal out of it. And then I saw John has a question. There might be, I don't think there's any Rumble rants, but if there's any other questions, we'll do it. So here we go.
When I get home from work each day, it feels like I just worked 200 years. When I see all the bills I gotta pay, seems like to take 200 years. And now we hear this fella celebrate the latest boss's game. But who they calling us when every day we're fighting them? 200 years. 200 years is bicentennial is old. 200 years. The rich want us to spare for them 200 more. 200 years. 200 years, these parasites have sucked our blood. But let's get them off our backs. 200 years is long enough. Well, that must have been some party dumped that British tea back then 200 years. And that must have been some struggle dumping British tyranny back 200 years. But sending King George packing made the rich here free to build their own empire and change and wage slavery. 200 years. 200 years. This bicentennial is for 200 years. The rich want us to slave for them. Let's get them off our backs. 200 years is long enough. Oh, well, our class built this country. We have labored, we have slaved 200 years. Oh, but they're the class that runs it, taking all the wealth we've made 200 years.
They're coming down, their time is up. 200 years is long
and their
enough.
rule has brought us misery, unemployment, crime, and war. But every decent thing we have, our class has fought on for.
200 years.
200 years.
This bicentennial is
for
200 years.
The rich want us to slave for them 200 more.
200 years.
200 years. These parasites that suck our blood. Let's get them off our backs. 200 years is long enough. They've hired the finest minds to find out how their system's gonna last 200 years.
It's coming down, their time is up. 200 years is long
And they're
enough.
working overtime to cover up the past 200 years.
They're coming down, their time is up. 200 years is long enough.
Promise peace and plenty as they plan another war. But they've got a little problem. We're not taking any more.
200 years.
200 years.
This bicentennial is for 200 years.
The rich want us to slave for them 200 more.
200 years.
200 years. These parasites that suck our blood. Let's get them off our backs. 200 years is long enough. Fellow workers, to our class belongs the future, and it isn't gonna wait 200 years. Oh no. Well, the rich man's time is up, and he's gonna get the cake in a few more years. And with their system museums, with the relics of the past, we'll build that future when the workers rule at last. 200 years, 200 years, this bicentennial is for 200 years. Want us to slave for them 200 more, 200 years, 200 years. These parasites suck our blood. Let's get them off our backs. 200 years is long enough. We'll bring them down. Their time is up. 200 years is long enough. We'll bring them down. Their time is up. 200 years is long enough. We'll bring them down. Their time is up. 200 years is long enough.
200 years.
200 years.
This bicentennial is for 200 years.
The rich want us to slave for them 200 more.
200 years.
200 years. These parasites that suck our blood. Let's get them off our backs. Say, let's get them off our backs. All right, let's get them off our backs. 200 years is long enough.
All righty. Very good. Glad you all are here. This isn't going to be a huge long stream tonight, but hey, we've been at it for an hour or so. So this is the new book that I wrote, To the Marxists, Long Live Innovationism. Beautiful cover design. I wrote it. It's not that long. It's 114 pages long. Pretty big print. And it basically just kind of explains where we're at. So I'll read you the introduction. This text is being composed in the direct aftermath of the 2024 presidential elections. And what a strange political situation we find ourselves in. The bulk of the American people are tired of their living standards dropping amid inflation and are opposed to further involvement in foreign wars. They reject the political correctness imposed on them from above, as well as the censorship exercised by tech monopolies. Kamala Harris promised more of the same, while Trump beat his chest in support of various anti-establishment and pro-growth sentiments, along with fear-mongering about immigrants and social conservatism. Trump won by a landslide, and now the left, including the so-called Marxists, writhe in anger. We are in a bizarre political space where the very wars, censorship, austerity, and inflation that Trump voters rallied against are labeled communism and Marxism by those who oppose it. Rather than correcting them, this label is embraced by the bulk of the socialist and Marxist voices that have emerged over the last decade to dominate internet spaces, where the vast majority of these discussions are now had. They are proud contrarians, embracing the worst ideas ascribed to them by their right-wing opponents, beating their chests while shouting, "Yes, but it's good." They gleefully align with the State Department and mainstream media like CNN in defense of wars, political repression, censorship, and declining living standards. They embrace the notion of degrowth, arguing we need to reduce consumption and the population as a moral necessity. They loudly embrace the FBI and the CIA's attacks on the freedom of Americans they disagree with. They provide cover for and often actively applaud the collaboration between social media companies and the state in actively censoring not only their opponents' opinions, but even those they ostensibly agree with. Socialists and Marxists in our time are not dissidents or providing people an alternative. In our current political landscape, socialism and communism is one of the main masks worn by the imperialist camp and its most shrill defenders. This text is part of a complete reinvention of the Center for Political Innovation. We exist to win, and that means understanding that the world has changed in the last century and the urgent need to adapt. The urgent need in our time is a block of anti-imperialists within U.S. society, mobilizing working people to assert their economic interests against the big monopolies. Our goal is a society where the banks, factories, and industries are organized to serve the public good and not the profits of a wealthy few. We want to unleash human creativity and growth to new heights, create vast abundance, and eliminate poverty and scarcity. This book is composed as a message to the, quote, Marxists, any of whom might bother to read it. It is written in their language as an answer to their concerns, primarily addressing why our beliefs remaining the same why, despite our beliefs remaining the same, we no longer seek to occupy their spaces or claim a place in their discourse. We do not want to be communists or Marxists anymore. Doing so would only hinder us from doing what urgently needs to be done. This may be hard to grasp at first, but this text will explain why to those who care to learn. The response to this text and the preceding announcements are predictable. The first response from Marxists, mainly a collection of internet fandoms, will be to incorrectly claim, "Aha! They admit it! We were right all along! They're not Marxists, but secret Nazi, pedo, rapist, LaRouchists! We were right the whole time!" People of such mindset are worthless to engage with, and the majority of self-identified Marxists in our time are just like them. They want anyone they are not directly affiliated with to be wrong, so that their particular fandom can be right. They don't want unity to defeat imperialism. They want to be entertained by their favorite internet personality and whatever beef they currently have. Regarding the Center for Political Innovation, what we are actually doing, or what we truly believe, is totally irrelevant to them. If we ever accomplish anything for a cause they claim to support, or say anything that they deem to be correct politically, it only makes them hate us even more, seeing us as competitors rather than traditional fellow travelers. Despite the fact that such people have no interest in listening, we still will state what will be obvious by the time this pamphlet concludes to any honest readers. Our beliefs have not changed. We still want to defeat imperialism. We are still in favor of a rationally organized economy to eliminate the irrationality of profits in command. We stand in solidarity with those across the world resisting imperialism and the new vibrant economy emerging around the world as a result of anti-colonial revolutions. To us, this is what being a communist was always about. However, it is no longer about that for the overwhelming majority of communists in America. It is also no longer about that for the overwhelming majority of people who oppose the emerging low-wage police state and the march toward war. There may be another layer of cynical, reactionary anti-communists who will read this text or see its existence in yet another negative light, saying, so Caleb and his band of followers have decided to pretend not to be communists, to trick a bunch of Trumpers into joining their movement. What a dumb idea. Not falling for it, comrades. Well, this is equally incorrect. We have fundamental differences with what calls itself communism in the Western world, and even with aspects of authentic Marxism-Leninism. We are not simply rebranding Soviet ideology. The world has changed, and so has anti-imperialism globally. Anti-imperialist political forces in the United States should follow suit. Our differences make it clear that we should not associate with communism or contend for a spot within it. We need to build something new and different. As will be explained below, we are holding on to the revolutionary essence of Marxism-Leninism, the revolutionary essence that communists discarded a long time ago. Furthermore, we openly admit that certain aspects of the Marxist-Leninist worldview are fundamentally wrong, and we have broken with them. We have deviated in a number of ways, as has the majority of communist-led governments and anti-imperialist forces around the world. We gain nothing from pretending we are the true communists when the majority of forces we support no longer make this claim. It must be said that self-ID is not automatically reflective of one's actual beliefs. One could call themselves a fascist and not know anything about what fascism actually means. To put forward a no true Scotsman argument about what communism really is and who is a real communist only serves to create market segmentation in fandom building, as will be discussed more later, creating in-groups and out-groups to argue with and about. We want to put ourselves above these silly semantic games, even if we could successfully win the argument and force our detractors to somehow acknowledge that we're the true communists or the more authentic representatives of the legacy of Marxism-Leninism. What would be the point? Would this get us any closer to defeating imperialism or rescuing our country from the current crisis? Being the real communists is not what we aspire to be. We aspire to change the world, teach people, and help others realize that they can change the world as well. There is a great deal of nuance in this text. These concepts are very complex. This text has been written for those in the Center for Political Innovation who come from the Marxist tradition, and for those outside the organization who have a foundation in Marxism and are trying to understand where we are coming from. Honest readers will learn a lot, not just about our beliefs, but about our exciting project to build a truly revolutionary anti-imperialist movement in America. Read this text carefully. Don't be afraid to read a section of what is being said several times. This text was intentionally written to be concise and to the point, so many key concepts have been densely packed into these paragraphs. And that is the introduction. And the first chapter is Where Do We Stand? And I lay out 4 things that we believe. 1, Western imperialist financial system is in severe crisis. 2, Central planning works. 3, modern technology necessitates moving beyond profits and command. 4, Eurasia is rising while the West fails. We must embrace multipolarity. Then from there, I make 2 important historical parallels. I talk about how the Bolsheviks broke with social democracy. And then I talk about how Christianity broke from Judaism. And then we have a chapter called We Preserve the Revolutionary Essence of Marxism-Leninism. And in that chapter, we talk about how Marxism-Leninism is anti-imperialist. And Marxism-Leninism believes in economic growth and raising productive forces. And we have all kinds of quotes from Marx and Lenin and Stalin and all of them to explain this. 3, Marxism-Leninism has no loyalty to the left of imperialism. And 4, Marxism-Leninism seeks to create a planned economy. And we explain why communists in the United States do not believe in that anymore. Those are 4 essential aspects of communism: believing in economic growth, being anti-imperialist, not being loyal to the imperialist left, and wanting to create a planned economy. Those are 4 essential aspects of Marxism-Leninism that not a single communist organization in America believes anymore. None of them. None of them believe in that anymore. We do. So we are preserving the revolutionary essence of Marxism-Leninism. And then we have a chapter, Where Do We Stray from Marxism? And we say we do not promote dialectical materialism. Dialectical materialism is a philosophy that Marx based his teachings on, and we are influenced by it, and a lot of our members have drawn heavily from it, but it's not in line with how we operate as an organization, and there's a lot of spirituality in what we do, and we don't see conflict as good. We see too much conflict in our society, and we don't promote dialectical materialism. In addition to that, we recognize non-Marxist Leninist socialism. There's been plenty of socialist countries around the world, anti-imperialist governments that were not Marxist Leninist. Ba'athist Arab socialism, African socialism, Ajuma, Gaddafi's Libya, many examples. Bolivarian socialism. And even the Marxist-Leninist governments that currently exist, socialism with Chinese characteristics deviates from standard ML, right? Vietnam and Laos and Juche in North Korea is deviant from standard ML. And the idea that you have to believe in Marxism-Leninism to be a socialist country is ridiculous, right? But that seems to be what most communists in the world believe, that you have to believe in ML to be communist. We don't think that, right? And that belief is magical. And we also believe the market has a role in socialism. Modern socialist countries have a market sector, and that is essential. You need the market for consumer goods. You need the market for hospitality, but the market shouldn't have command. But the market has a role in a socialist society. In addition to that, we do not practice democratic centralism. Democratic centralism in our time is a recipe for disaster organizing. You can't have a democratic centralist organization in our time for reasons that we get into. If we were practicing democratic centralism, the CPI would be 5 people, right? You have to let people disagree. You have to let members have their free speech. You can't obligate everyone to speak in unison and just repeat what the leader said. You can't do that. It doesn't work, right? There's a reason that all these communist groups are tiny little sects, and that's because they all insist on practicing Leninist democratic centralism, and we are not in those conditions, and it doesn't pay off. It just results in, you disagree, well, you have to quit because the whole party marches as one, and we don't do that. And on top of that, we do not claim Comintern lineage, right? The idea, every communist group can tell you how they're a split from a split from a split from a split, and they can trace their lineage right back to Karl Marx, and if Marx was alive today, he'd be in their group. And this is idiotic. This is stupid. This is not how political groups do. The Democrats, are they a split from a split from a split? Of course not. The Republicans, are they a split from a split from a split? Of course not. The Libertarians, are they a split from a split? No, right? You go to any modern socialist country. Is the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, are they a split from the Communist Party? No, they're just a new regroupment. Is the Sandinistas in Nicaragua, are they a split from a split? Of course not. They're just a new political party. And when you're tracing your lineage back and you're claiming that you're the true inheritor, this is sectarian religious behavior. This is the behavior of religious sects. This is not the behavior of serious political parties, okay? And that's why we're not claiming Comintern lineage. We don't claim that we're the true inheritors of the Comintern. We're not, right? And if Marx was alive today, would he join our group? I don't know, and I don't care. That doesn't fucking matter. It does not matter. It doesn't matter. He might, and he might not. Marx didn't think that imperialism was an issue. He thought communism would come first in the West. Marx was an atheist, and we have many religious people in our group. There's many examples of why Marx would disagree with us, and that doesn't matter. We're about what's true and what's not. We're about what's right and what's wrong. We're about building an effective anti-imperialist movement, not claiming that we are the true inheritors of, so we don't claim Comintern lineage. And then from there, I said, how do we relate to other anti-imperialists? We have a section about like who is anti-imperialist in the United States. And then from there, I say we are not Marcyites. And I talk about how the largest group of anti-imperialist communists in America, really, almost all communists that are still at all anti-imperialist are Marcyites, right? And there's Breakthrough News, the Party of Socialism and Liberation, Workers' World, and all that. And I explain our differences with Marxism. Then from there, I explain how we are not LaRouchists, right? Because right now, LaRouchism is a very big part of anti-imperialism. It hasn't always been anti-imperialist, but, Diane Sayre and Jose Vega and all of them, the LaRouchist element, they are now a big part of anti-imperialism in America. Well, we have some commonalities with them, but we're not LaRouchists, just like we're not Marxists. Then from there, I talk about internet fandoms. I'm not going to say too much more about that. You got to buy the book if you want to see what I said about that. Not going to say much more there, right? And then I talk about libertarians and the old right, and I give some insightful analysis about how libertarianism is about a lot more than just what they believe, right? On the surface level, we would be the exact opposite of libertarians, but actually, libertarians represent something bigger than their beliefs. They represent the old right. They represent lower levels of capital, and there's an overlap there, and that they represent something bigger. And that is that section. And then the final section is, what is our practice? And from there, I talk about what we actually do. Imagine that, what we actually do as an organization. I talk about what we actually do, which is why we exist. We exist to carry out operations, right? There's no other reason for us to exist than to carry out operations. Our practice is the most essential aspect of an organization. If an organization exists, it has a practice, it has a function, right? And that has been what we've been trying to figure out. If we don't have a function, we don't exist, right? A group of people who agree with each other can form a Facebook group, they can form a Discord server, but an actual organization, an actual movement is about practice. And so we explain what our practice is, why we exist, what our function is. And at the end, we then end with the timeline of CPI activities to show people why we exist and what we do. And one point that we make in the practice section is that our political opponents don't understand why our practice is important. And that's fine. We don't need their approval. Look, our political opponents, the people who hate us, they have not sent a single person to support the Uhuru movement. Not one. I was there in front of the federal courthouse, and John McCarthy of CPI was there, and Jill Stein of the Green Party was there, and Charles Barron, former New York City Council member and black nationalist, he was there. There was not a single one of these other political trends in front of the courthouse. Not one of them. People with millions of followers, literally on Twitter, who make millions of dollars to do what they do. No, didn't show up. None of them. They don't care about the Uhuru movement. It doesn't occur to them that the government raiding a group of black people's homes and charging them with being Russian agents for their political activism and possibly putting them in jail for 15 years or maybe just 5 years, or who knows what could happen at their sentencing. It doesn't occur to them that that's like something we should oppose and do something about. It doesn't even occur to them. The people we are contending with, especially the internet fandoms, they don't even understand what we're doing, right? And that's why they have no respect for us. They don't understand why us going to Russia and speaking at the World Youth Festival and making those international connections with anti-imperialist forces. They don't understand why that's important. They don't understand why our national day of action to support the Houthis was important. They don't understand why me confronting Sa Ing-wen on the streets of New York was important. They don't understand about the big conferences and conventions that we have and why that's important. They don't understand that. And that's fine. We're not trying to impress them. We're trying to get the job done. And in order to really pivot our focus away from stupidity, we have to stop being communists. And so if you are someone from the Marxist tradition, this is the book for you, right? If you want to know where we're at, this is the book, right? And it's not the most important thing, honestly. It's not the most important thing. It really isn't. But hey, it's there. So if you want to check out that book, you can. All right, folks, names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Names and locations. Who is with us? Names and locations. Who is with us? Names and locations. Seasoned noob in China. John McCarthy in Chicago, who just wrote a great article. It's on our website about the Uhuru movement and their trial reenactment. Connor in Colorado. Anway in India. Jenny in Cincinnati. Very, very good. Patch in Arizona. Very, very good. Very, very good. Jacob in Wisconsin. Welcome, Jacob. Good to have you with us. Chris in Germany. Welcome, Chris. Alex in Brazil. Anthony in Detroit. Good to have you with us. Names and locations, folks. Names and locations. Deha in Seattle just joined. We got a new member. Yes. See you at the meeting tomorrow, Deha. I will make sure to right now forward you. Your name must be on the members list. So now I'm going to forward you the invitation to tomorrow's meeting. It's a good thing you said that, or you might have missed tomorrow's meeting. But now I'm going to get your email address out of the email address thing, and I'm going to forward you the invitation to tomorrow's meeting because it already went out earlier tonight, and you wouldn't have gotten it. Except now you are going to get it because I am sending it to you to your email right now. So Deha, you just got the invitation to tomorrow's membership meeting. So yeah, you got the link and all of that. See you at tomorrow's membership meeting. And I hope many others follow suit as Deha did. No problem. Gabby in Chicago is with us. Ellie in Chicago is with us. Rice from Adelaide, Australia. Ryan in Kansas City. Welcome, Ryan. Good to have you with us. April and Chris in Salt Lake City. Welcome. Good to have you with us. Names and locations, folks. Names and locations. Patrick in Maine. St. David's, Bermuda. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Names and locations. Names and locations. Names and locations. Amos in Craig in Japan's. Welcome, Craig. Craig is in Japan. There we go. Names and locations. Who is with us tonight? Names and locations. Yes, Peter did an amazing job. He did a very, very amazing job. Please get the video out. I will obviously talk more about that tonight. I've got to answer people's questions though. Names and locations. Anybody else? Names and locations. Do we have any Rumble rants? Don't see any Rumble rants, but we do have 4 super chats that have come in. So, Briggy in Pennsylvania. Great in the video. Great job, Briggy. Great job, Gabby. Great job, Timoshenko. Great job, Noah. Great job, Jesse. Great job, Denver. Great job, Connor. Great job, Noah. Great job, John McCarthy. Great job, Peter Coffin. Great job all around. Great job, Mike. You did a great job, Mike. Wow. It was really something special. We just got to get it to everybody now. That's what we got to do. All right. Okay. The people started turning on Joe McCarthy when he started accusing the U.S. Army of harboring Russian spies. The same thing Tulsi haters are doing now. That's interesting. That's an interesting parallel, John. It doesn't exactly line up, but it's a very good point, right? So I have often broken down that McCarthyism was in 3 stages. First, it was, the Democrat Party during Roosevelt's administration was divided. Roosevelt was a wildly popular president, but he went against his own party. And the main opponent of Roosevelt in the Democrat Party was Al Smith. And Al Smith was the leader of the New York City Democrat Party machine. And Al Smith was Roman Catholic. And Al Smith was very anti-communist. And because Roosevelt was sympathetic to the Soviet Union and was meeting with Communist Party labor leaders, Al Smith formed the American Liberty League. And Al Smith represented a lot of urban Catholic Democrats who were against Roosevelt. And they formed the America First Committee. John F. Kennedy was part of the America First Committee. Gerald Ford, 2 future U.S. presidents, were part of the America First Committee. And the American Liberty League and then the America First Committee, they were largely Roman Catholics that considered Roosevelt to be soft on communism. And, they represented kind of the urban political machines of the Democratic Party that are notoriously corrupt. And that's where Joe Biden comes from, right? Joe Biden's our second Catholic president. The urban political machines, the Rizzo machine in Philadelphia, the Daley machine in Chicago, the Kennedy machine in Boston, notoriously corrupt. You had those folks. And so after Roosevelt died, the Democrat Party's urban machines went to war against the Roosevelt wing of the Democrat Party. Alger Hiss was a Roosevelt Democrat who was very friendly to the Soviet Union, and he was accused of being a spy. And they didn't jail him for being a spy. They ended up getting him for perjury because he lied about something, but he wasn't a spy. But Alger Hiss, who had been a UN ambassador for Roosevelt, was accused of being a Soviet spy. Harry Truman had become vice president. They'd forced Henry Wallace out. Henry Wallace was forced out of the Democrat Party and ran against the Democrats in the 1948 election. And they basically purged the Democratic Party of the Roosevelt wing. And it was the Catholic labor union federations. A lot of workers in the steel industry and in the auto industry were Roman Catholic. And so the Catholic labor federations were Roman Catholic workers in unions, and they pushed to have their unions ban communists. And so the Catholic labor federations and the Catholic urban political machines in New York City and in the major cities, they kind of went to war against the Roosevelt wing of the Democrat Party. That was the first stage of McCarthyism. And it was basically the Soviet Union had been an ally against the Nazis, and now the Soviet Union was an enemy in the Cold War. And so the wing of the American imperialists that had become friendly to the Soviet Union for strategic reasons, and a lot of them were really impressed with what the Soviet Union done. Henry Wallace had been vice president. He praised Stalin. He was in awe of the Soviet Union's economic achievements. And Alger Hiss was very impressed with what the Soviet Union had done. There were a lot of people in the State Department and other things. They weren't communists, right? And that's a lot of people say, oh, McCarthy was right. They were communists. And they weren't communists. They were people who thought the Soviets were not our enemy and who thought it was in America's interest to get along with the Soviet Union. They weren't communists, but they were anti-imperialists. There was an anti-imperialist wing of the Roosevelt Democratic Party. Henry Wallace was the leader of it, basically. And they got purged. And it was largely Catholic Democrats, including, JFK's father, who was a big leader of it. And it was the Democrats, largely. It wasn't Republicans. It was urban Democrats purging their own ranks. But then what happened? 1949, right? So 1948, Harry Truman ran for president, and he was opposed by Henry Wallace, who was a Democrat. And then he integrated the U.S. Armed Forces because he was afraid that a lot of the black people might vote for Wallace, because Wallace was running on a pro-civil rights platform. So then the Southern racist Democrats broke with the Democratic Party too. Strom Thurmond formed the National States Rights Party, which was the Ku Klux Klan Democrats. So the Democrat vote was split three ways in 1948, and that's why there's that famous photo of Harry Truman. He holds up the picture. Dewey defeats Truman, because there's no way he could have won. The Democrat vote was divided three ways between the anti-imperialists who were voting for Henry Wallace, and the racists who were voting for Strom Thurmond, and the regular Democrats that were voting for Harry Truman. There's no way Harry Truman won. It was a stolen election. But Harry Truman won. He defeated Dewey, who was the Republican. And after 1948, the next year, 1949, the Communist Party of China won. And they established the People's Republic. Chiang Kai-shek was defeated. And why was Chiang Kai-shek defeated? What was the last straw? Is that Chiang Kai-shek had been, he'd been the ally of America in China, right? Mao was aligned with the Soviet Union. Chiang Kai-shek had been aligned with America and with the British Empire. Well, the British Empire went to Chiang Kai-shek and they said, dude, we're going to help you. And we are going to give you a new currency. And you're going to have paper currency. You don't want to have gold in China. That's outdated in third world. We're going to help you get a new currency. And Chiang Kai-shek trusted the British Empire. They were giving him guns to fight Mao, and he trusted the British Empire. And I actually have a picture of this, right? And so Chiang Kai-shek said, all right, if that's what the British Empire wants me to do, the Bank of England and all of that. And so Chiang Kai-shek printed this new fancy paper currency called the Golden Yuan. The Golden Yuan. It had his face on it. There's Chiang Kai-shek. And he made it illegal to have gold. And they went to the homes of all the rich people, and at gunpoint, they took their gold and they gave them golden yuan, this new currency that Chiang Kai-shek invented. And then, within a year, the golden yuan was completely fucking worthless. It was worthless. And all the rich people lost all their money. And they were like, God damn it, anybody's better than this clown. And at that point, a lot of the richest people went to Mao and they said, look, are you going to take all my property? Are you going to nationalize everything? And Mao said, no, we're not having a socialist revolution. We're having a new democratic revolution, and you can keep your wealth. And there were over 600 millionaires for the first 10 years of the Chinese People's Republic, because that was the deal that was made. And they said, Mao said, look, you'll keep your wealth. We're going to build new government-run industries, but if you're already rich, you can keep your money. And so they said, okay. And a lot of the millionaires went over, and that was the turning point in the Chinese Civil War. And at that point, almost all of Chiang Kai-shek's soldiers and all the millionaires and all of that switched over to supporting Mao, and Mao seized Beijing, and the People's Republic was declared, and Taiwan, and Chiang Kai-shek ran back to Taiwan, and the People's Republic was declared. And at that point, that's the largest country in the world in terms of population, became communist-led. And at that point, like, the imperialists were like, holy shit, how did this happen? And so Republicans started saying, after the 1949 revolution and after the election in 1948, where Truman was reelected, they started saying, who lost China? Who lost China? And they started pointing out, which was true, that Roosevelt had given guns to Mao. And that was true, that the Chinese communists were getting guns and weapons from the American government. That was true. And that there were a lot of instances where during World War II, to fight Japan, the Roosevelt administration had given a lot of weapons and financial support, mainly to Chiang Kai-shek, but also to the Chinese communists, right? And so they started a campaign about how the Democrats were responsible for China becoming communist because they had given guns and weapons to the Chinese communists during World War II. And they started there were many instances where Roosevelt administration officials referred to, the Chinese communists, they called them agrarian reformers rather than communists. And they said, they were covering up. They were giving aid to communists. They called them agrarian reformers. This was all like a big thing, right? They said they were giving money to agrarian reformers. They were actually giving money to communists, right? This became a big thing, right? A big thing. And so because of that, the Republicans started accusing the Democrats of being soft on communism, having covered up, giving weapons and money to communists. And so the Republicans started riding high on this allegation that the Democrats had fucked up. And actually, one of the main groups that set up shop during this time was what was called the China Lobby. And it was Chiang Kai-shek, Chiang Kai-shek on the island of Taiwan. He claimed it was the real government of China, and the USA recognized the government on Taiwan as the real China, did not recognize the communist government in China. And so there were a number of American conservatives who started getting money from Chiang Kai-shek to set up the China Lobby. And the China Lobby started accusing the Democrats of being soft on communism. And they were the most shrill anti-communists, were the China Lobby. I think the World Anti-Communist League was formed during this time. And this was a group of right-wing conservatives who were very anti-communist, a lot of military leaders from various developing countries that met on the island of Taiwan, and a lot of Republicans who went to Taiwan and met with them. And that was the beginning of what they called the China Lobby. So then out of all of this emerges Senator Joe McCarthy. And Senator Joe McCarthy he took what the Republicans were doing, what the China Lobby was doing, to a whole nother level. And Joe McCarthy, he started, first of all, a lot of people don't know this. Joe McCarthy was anti-Israel. Joe McCarthy believed Israel was a communist country because the Soviet Union had supported Israel, because at the time there was a very large Israeli Communist Party, because the Labor Party, which was the Social Democratic Party, the Haganah, the Israeli Labor Party was a big party, because there were a lot of socialist co-ops in Israel, because the kibbutzim. Joe McCarthy thought Israel was communist, and so he was anti-Israel. And at that point, the Democrats were more pro-Israel because they said Jews are an oppressed minority, Jews are progressive, and supporting Israel was seen as like being a progressive, being in favor of this oppressed minority. Whereas the Republicans were more non-interventionist. The America First Committee and all of that, they said, no, Israel's not our business. We shouldn't be supporting Israel. So Joe McCarthy was anti-Israel, right? And Joe McCarthy also noticed that the CIA was funding Trotskyites, and the CIA was funding anti-communist labor union bosses and stuff. So Joe McCarthy started accusing the CIA of being communists. One of the main things the CIA did in the 50s was it ran Voice of America, which is American government propaganda, Radio Free Asia, Radio Free Europe. Well, Joe McCarthy would listen to the broadcasts, and often in those broadcasts, they would say, true things. They would acknowledge true things the communists said. And Joe McCarthy thought that Voice of America was spreading communist propaganda. It wasn't. It was spreading very effective anti-communist propaganda. But in order to make an argument, you have to acknowledge true things. But Joe McCarthy's feeling was the communists are the most evil thing ever. The other thing was that in 1948, Yugoslavia cut ties to the Soviet Union. Tito denounced Stalin and cut ties. And so the American government started giving funding to Yugoslavia. They weren't getting any Soviet funding. And it was a communist government that cut off the Soviet Union. So strategically, the USA said, this is our chance. And so they started funding Yugoslavia. Well, Joe McCarthy said, you can't fund a communist government. And so he was rallying against funding Yugoslavia, right? And Joe McCarthy was anti-Israel, and Joe McCarthy was anti-Yugoslavia. And Joe McCarthy was accusing Voice of America of being communist. And Joe McCarthy and the FBI had a close relationship. J. Edgar Hoover of the FBI and Joe McCarthy both believed that the CIA was communist, which it wasn't. The CIA was funneling money to leftists to bribe them to not be communists and manipulating the labor movement and all that. But Joe McCarthy started this whole thing, Voice of America, the CIA are communist, the U.S. Army was communist, that was part of it. It went after all kinds of people. There was a woman who'd been a secretary at the State Department, like a literal secretary, an African-American woman, and he humiliated her, in Congress. And Joe McCarthy was going crazy. So there was a Mossad agent in Las Vegas named Hank Greenspun. And Hank Greenspun was a newspaper owner. He owned a newspaper in Las Vegas, but he was also heavily involved in organized crime. and he went to U.S. military bases in Nevada and stole military equipment and sent it to Israel. He stole millions of dollars of U.S. Army equipment and sent it to Israel. And he ran this, and that's how he made millions of dollars, as he was stealing U.S. military equipment and giving it to Israel. Hank Greenspun, who now, is well known to have been a Mossad operative. He literally stole millions of dollars of tanks and weapons and guns and all of this. Hank Greenspun revealed that Joe McCarthy was gay, and Joe McCarthy was gay. And that, Joe McCarthy, he printed that Joe McCarthy was gay, and he printed it in his newspaper. And actually the FBI investigated it, and they found out that it was a lot worse than what Hank Greenspun said. Hank Greenspun basically said that Joe McCarthy would go to gay bars in Wisconsin, which was true. There were certain bars that were known to be gay hangouts. He would go there and cruise or whatever. Well, it was worse than that. When Joe McCarthy was in the Army, he would get younger guys drunk and rape them. He would take them out drinking, and he would get them drunk, and then he would take them upstairs to his hotel room and rape them. It was a pretty nasty dude. Joe McCarthy was a pretty despicable figure. And the FBI, who were his allies, determined that that was true. And so, Joe McCarthy was gay, but Joe McCarthy also hated gay people. Like, it was weird. He passed a law. He arranged for a law to be passed. No gay person could work at the U.S. State Department. He made jokes about pixies on the floor of Congress. Like, there's video of him talking about pixies. And at the time, you have to remember, the Soviet Union was very anti-LGBT. They said homosexuality was bourgeois decadence and all of this. But Joe McCarthy was telling everyone that homosexuality was a communist conspiracy against the traditional family, and that at the same time that they were cracking down on gay people, or they were cracking down on communists, it was part of this like traditionalist conservative Catholic revival where they were cracking down on gay people. They were also cracking down on pornography. They were, cracking down on gambling and all kinds of things. It was like a kind of an upsurge of traditional conservative morality by these Roman Catholic conservatives against communism, right? So anyway, Joe McCarthy found out there was a member of Congress who, I forget his name, who he found out that his son was gay, that his son had been arrested at a gay bar. That, it used to be illegal to be gay, and so there'd be gay bars, and every so often the police would go there and just arrest people on charges of lewd behavior or indecency. Was a member of Congress. His son had been at a gay bar or whatever and got arrested. And so Joe McCarthy blackmailed this guy and said, you have to do what I want. You have to give me everything I want, or else I'll reveal this. And so the guy killed himself, and he wrote a suicide note saying basically Joe McCarthy used the fact that my son and he blackmailed me. And people read the suicide note and they were horrified. It was horrifying, right? That Joe McCarthy would do that. He would blackmail this guy over his son being gay. And then, Hank Greenspun revealed that Joe McCarthy was himself actually gay. And then they started showing the hearings on television. They just started broadcasting the hearings, and they showed him terrorizing this black woman. This older black woman is sitting there, and he's, making fun of her and humiliating her on TV and all that. And people are like, what a jerk this guy is. And so public opinion turned against Joe McCarthy. Now, it had a lot to do with Israel, right? It started out with Israel. It was Israel that didn't like Joe McCarthy because Joe McCarthy was, a fascist, basically. He was, an anti-Semitic fascist, right? And they didn't like him because of that. He was, so anti-communist, he didn't like Jews, right? And that was really what was going on. He had a soft spot for, the Nazis kind of. And so he was anti-Semitic, and he was one of these hard traditionalist Catholic anti-Semites. And so the Israelis saw that he was hurting Israel, that he was anti-Israel, that he was hurting the CIA, etc. So Israel and the CIA, they used their influence in the media to push back against the FBI that was for Joe McCarthy. And they went after Joe McCarthy because Joe McCarthy was, it started out as, my point is this, it started out as the Democrats, clearing their own house of the Roosevelt wing. Then it became Republicans going after Democrats. Then it became Joe McCarthy going after everybody and starting this kind of weird fascist movement that was anti-Semitic, that was really anti-gay, even though he was gay. It was a lot of different things. When Hank Greenspun revealed that Joe McCarthy was gay, he married his secretary the next day. because he was single, right? And everyone noticed, hey, this guy's like, and he's single. He's never been married. He's never had a girlfriend. That's a little weird, right? He's been in politics his whole life. He's single. And now there's these reports that he went to gay bars. So the next day, he married his secretary. I mean, it was like, come on, right? Everyone was like, come on. And then Joe McCarthy's best friend was Roy Cohn. And Roy Cohn was well known to be gay. And Roy Cohn eventually died of AIDS. He died of HIV. And Roy Cohn was very well known to be gay. So, that's Joe McCarthy. And yeah, he accused the army of being communist. He accused Voice of America and the CIA of being communist. And he was anti-Israel. And he represented a lot of what you can call the old right. And it's complicated, right? The old right, the so-called old right is, it's lower level capitalists, the middle class, that they thought the ultra rich were communists, right? They thought the Rockefellers were communists, right? And they're against big capital, and they're against the working class. They're against labor unions. And after Joe McCarthy died in Appleton, Wisconsin, his hometown, the John Birch Society was founded. And that was like a continuation of Joe McCarthy. And actually in this book, in the section on libertarians, I talk about all of this because libertarianism is kind of a continuation of the old right and the John Birch Society in a weird way. It's interesting. But what that layer of people, the petty bourgeois, the middle class, what they want is now very different than what they wanted in a period when the U.S. economy was much stronger, right? Back then, their main enemy was labor unions. Now their main enemy is the big capitalists that are trying to crush them and impose degrowth on them. And so it's complicated. But yes, there's a layer of capitalists in the United States, the petty bourgeois, the lower levels of the bourgeoisie, the petty bourgeoisie, the small owners, that layer of people, right? They are at odds with the imperialists. The imperialists have never really been having the same agenda. They just want to make money, and the big monopolies want to crush them. And so their class position has changed. And during the Cold War, they were the old right or the hard right wing. Now they are pivoting in a different direction. And this is economics, and this is heavy stuff. And that, again, anti-monopoly coalition, read William Z. Foster, you'll understand it. Anyway, have you sent the video to Jyoti? I have not. Jyoti is a good friend of mine. I love her work, and I'm really glad that I connected her with Garland Nixon and that she does the great work that she does. But she is very, very much a communist. I mean, she is very committed to fighting to maintain that name. I'm sure that she strongly disapproves of the direction we're moving in, though I think I can't speak for her. You know what I mean? I don't speak for her, but I respect her, and I don't know. I'm sure we'll invite her to come to our convention next summer. I don't see why we wouldn't, but, and Garland Nixon loves her, and I love Jyoti. I've learned a lot from Jyoti. I've been promoting her work since before she ever met me. I was just a fan of hers on the internet years ago when I was in college. Jyoti is awesome, and she's always been at a different place than I am, right? She is very much, her group is called the CPGBML, like they are the pure Marxist Leninists. We're not, and we never have been, right? I embrace market socialism. They strongly don't agree with that. They really want to fight for classic ML. And I have always been of the impression that we shouldn't do that, I guess. There was a time years ago before I was ever online that I felt I was more in line with where Jyoti's at. But I've always been of the perspective we need to be broader anti-imperialists. But now I'm at the point where I really don't think we gain anything by trying to position ourselves inside of communism. And that is a really important point, because the global anti-imperialist movement is not communist anymore. The actual communist governments are not communist ML. They're not classic ML anymore. And, my Christian faith is a dialectical materialism. I have a fundamental disagreement with, I could reiterate the point, but that's the point of this book that I wrote, basically. All right. Very good. Is it time for a revival of the U.S. Whig ideology? That's a good question. There is a layer of people who view the Whig Party as somehow being progressive or something. I don't know enough about it, I'll be honest, but my understanding is that when the Republican Party was formed in 1848, or was it 1851, or in the 1850s, when the Republican Party was formed as a split from the Whig Party, that was a progressive move, that the Whig Party was not fully anti-slavery, was not fully populist, right? The Republican Party, when it began, was a populist party, anti-slavery, for the small farmers and for the labor unions. Abraham Lincoln gave speeches about how labor is superior to capital and the capitalists fleece the people, and that Abraham Lincoln was this populist lawyer from Illinois, which was the Wild West back in those days, and that the Republican Party, that took its name from the wave of revolts in Europe at the time, the 1848 Spring of Nations across Europe. The Republicans were those demanding modern nation states and democratic republics. The Republican Party splitting from the Whig Party was more revolutionary, right? And so my feeling is that Whig ideology, I always viewed the Whigs as more conservative than the Republicans. The Democrats were very solidly pro-slavery, very much in bed with the British Empire. The Whigs were like kind of the loyal opposition. But as a result of the Second Great Awakening, as a result of the wave of democratic revolutions in Europe, as a result of John Brown and Harriet Tubman, and also a result of Henry David Thoreau and Ralph Waldo Emerson, and a lot of the radical, not Marxist or socialist, but the radical, I don't know what you want to call it. I mean, maybe libertarian. I mean, but it wasn't libertarian like libertarians are now, but the kind of radical rights of man thinking that was going on, right? The wave of progressivism, I guess you could call it, that accompanied, there was the Second Great Awakening, was like the religious version of it, but there was also Henry David Thoreau, there was also Ralph Waldo Emerson, there was also the abolitionist movement, which wasn't always religious. It tended to be dominated by religious forces, but there were atheists who were abolitionists. There was the early labor movement. There was a wave of people that were against the British Empire and against slavery, and were for the small farmers. They were for the slaves. They were for the labor unions. A lot of them wanted women to have the right to vote. A lot of them were very, very fanatically religious and fanatically Christian. And there was kind of a mass movement in this country that emerged. And as a result of that, the main opposition party, the Whig Party, split. And the people that were more conservative stayed Whigs, and the Republicans emerged as a revolutionary party that eventually presided over the Second American Revolution to abolish slavery. That's where the Republican Party came from. Now, after the death of Lincoln, the Republican Party split between the radical Republicans and the imperialists, right? There was a layer of Republicans who became imperialists. And then there were what they called the radical Republicans, like Thaddeus Stevens. And they were for land redistribution, and they were, and it's a whole nother thing. But anyway. Yeah. So I'm not on board with where you're at, but I want you to teach me. Please, Pella, teach me about Whig ideology. I want to learn more about it. I don't know enough. Maybe the Whigs, I'm sure there's something I'm missing, because I hear many people call for what you're calling for. So maybe there's more to it than this. So teach me. I'm an open book. I want to keep learning my entire life. All right. Yes, the LaRouche organization did start out as anti-imperialist. Their first proposal was for an international development bank of the global south. Well, that would be an anti-imperialist economic policy for sure. I guess what I'm referring to is that in the 70s and 80s, I know the LaRouche organization was very very hostile to a number of the anti-imperialist movements around the world, which they considered to be controlled by British intelligence or drug dealers or something like that. And that there was kind of an admiration for various Bonapartist figures that were in the imperialist camp, like Park Chung-hee, like Marcos and others. And that's why I don't see the LaRouche movement as consistently anti-imperialist. Their ideology, their understanding of economics is anti-imperialist for sure. And like what you're describing there, they are pro-growth, and imperialism is all about degrowth. But there was a Cold War going on. And this is, I guess, my Marciite roots. In the Cold War, I feel like, in the Cold War, you had to support Nelson Mandela and the anti-colonial struggles of black people, and you had to oppose the apartheid government. In the Cold War, you couldn't support Marcos. You had to support the people fight. I mean, I don't know, but I don't know. We're in very different times now. And that's the thing. Nowadays, the LaRouchites are front and center in anti-imperialism. And a lot of the people that were on what was considered the anti-imperialist side of the Cold War have completely deteriorated. So we're in a different time, right? And that I think a lot of that relates to the anti-imperialist camp, because the socialist countries all now have a vibrant middle class. The Sandinistas of Nicaragua, even Venezuela, right? I mean, and especially China and all of that, Vietnam. So the anti-imperialist countries all have a vibrant middle class, right? Whereas during the Cold War, the anti-imperialist countries all were like, no, we need total state ownership, and they were having the Soviet model. So those middle class elements often favored the kind of Bonapartist strongmen, that were on the U.S. side. People like Marcos, people like Park Chung-hee, various strongmen. So it's complicated. I'll just say it's complicated. I know the LaRouche organization has been friendly to the Chinese government since the death of Mao. Right. And that actually Helga LaRouche was visiting China even before the death of Mao. She visited China during the Cultural Revolution as a photojournalist. So it's complicated. Let me just say it's complicated. LaRoucheite politics, I mean, they don't consider themselves to be Marxists. Neither do we. I mean, at this point, but LaRoucheite politics has been away from Marxism a lot longer than we have. And they've developed in very unique, interesting ways. Things like the Monroe Doctrine and all of that, my background, my primary political influence is communism. That's how, my political influence developed, right? I was in the Maoist group very briefly. I never became a full member. I was like a fellow traveler of a Maoist group when I was in high school and then my first year of college. After that, I was a Marciite, and I was in the Marciite Workers' World Party, like the original Marciite group. I was with them for 8 years. So that's my background. And they were always very hostile to the LaRouche movement because they saw LaRouche as sympathetic to Marcos and Park Chung-hee and people like that and stuff like that. But, it's complicated. For example, right, when I went to Florida, part of what we got to do while we were there is we watched a documentary on the history of the Uhuru movement, the People's Democratic Uhuru movement, which, was very interesting to me. And I learned that the Uhuru movement was very, very opposed to Nelson Mandela, right? And that they were aligned with the Pan-African Congress, which was a more radical Black revolutionary organization, and that they considered Nelson Mandela to be a sellout. And actually, there's a strong look at South Africa today. There's a lot left to be done. Right. I mean, South Africa, they defeated apartheid, but, the wealth is still in the hands of the wealthy white settlers largely. So there's a fair case to be made there. And, the Workers' World Party, their position is they saw the Pan-African Congress as being agents of the CIA, as ultra-left provocateurs. And they supported Nelson Mandela because Nelson Mandela was the Soviet guy. The Soviet Union backed Nelson Mandela, and they saw Nelson Mandela as the main guy. And they got into scuffles with people that were supporting the Pan-African Congress. And now I'm at the point where I want to re-examine that debate because, the Uhuru movement is, they are clearly on the vanguard of anti-imperialism in America. And they were on the other side of that. So we don't need to refight the Cold War. You know what I'm saying? The Cold War is over and things have changed so much from then. I mean, I am familiar. I was in the Marciite group, and the Marciites were very solidly in the Soviet camp during the Cold War. That was their line. They were for the Soviet Union. That was their position. I mean, the Soviet Union's gone. The Soviet Union fell for a reason. My anti-imperialist instinct, it's like a revolutionary defeatism, is that, if the imperialists are on one side, you should automatically be on the other. But it's always more complicated than that. It's always more complicated than that. So, and Marcos called for a debt moratorium, right? There you go. I mean, Workers' World, we would have said Marcos was a military dictator propped up by the U.S. imperialists to fight communism, and maybe he was that, but he also called for a debt moratorium. So it's complicated. These things are complicated. And it's worth pointing out, and this is where I started realizing this as I was studying, and this is where Marciite people got mad at me because they just don't acknowledge this. In the 80s, in the late 80s and early 90s, there was a wave of color revolutions, not against communist and anti-imperialist governments, but against people like Marcos. Marcos was removed. Pinochet was removed, right? And there were and the military dictatorship in South Korea was removed. There were a wave of revolutions that were clearly sponsored by George Soros and the CIA, but they weren't against communist governments or anti-colonial governments. They were against the military dictatorships that were aligned with the United States, which were a barrier to austerity. The USA tolerated those guys. It tolerated those guys because it saw them as useful against communism, but it never trusted them, right? I mean, no, great example is the Unification Church, Reverend Sun Myung Moon, right? They clearly saw Reverend Moon as an ally against communism, right? He was anti-communist pastor imported to the United States to fight communists in the 70s, to oppose communists, but they threw him in prison for a tax code violation, right? And they accused his group of being a cult. There was a Saturday Night Live skit where they murdered him that like depicted killing Reverend Sun Myung Moon and all that. They never really respected him. And Park Chung-hee, the leader of South Korea, it's pretty clear the USA removed Park Chung-hee because he was too independent. And so it's like there was this layer of Bonapartists, of kind of like middle-class elements that would align with the imperialists against communism, but the imperialists never really trusted them. They were kind of just using them. And they always wanted to keep them down. They saw them as like useful against communists, but they never really trusted them. And nowadays, you know, around the world, those kind of forces, I'm not speaking like Marcos. I'm not speaking about Marcos. I'm not speaking about Korea or anything like that. I'm speaking with a broad brush here. Around the world, a lot of those kind of anti-communist strongmen forces are pivoting toward Russia and China because the imperialists are pushing degrowth so hard. And the imperialists can't afford to, you know, keep them in power. And so it's much more nuanced. I'll give you that, John. I will absolutely give you that. I will give you that for sure. All right. Organizations need to have understandability and collaboration between people working with a common goal. Absolutely. You don't know how hard it is for people to work together. We live in such an individualist culture in our time. And it's very hard to get people to think, okay, I need to think about what's best for the group. It's very hard to do that. People just don't do that nowadays, right? And that real relationships take work. Look, if you want to stay married, I'm married. I've been married for a decade, but it's hard work to stay married, but it's worth it because you're married, right? You know, and being in an organization is hard work, right? But it's worth it. It's hard work. And a lot of people now don't understand the benefit of being in a group, right? And, you know, it was very difficult to get this video done. I was on pins and needles. I was so anxious for it to get done. I'm like, it needs to get done. It needs to get done. And Peter, oh my goodness, with his tooth issue. And I mean, Peter Coffin, I am in awe of Peter Coffin. Peter Coffin is a brilliant organizer. He knows how to work with people. He's a brilliant video editor. Peter Coffin is amazing in so many ways. And we were pushing upstream, right? We were against the current to make this video. Look, it was hard, right? And I've still got all kinds of people to call and talk about. This video is a big accomplishment for our organization, but it's collective. We couldn't have made it alone, right? Think about it. It was so many people in the video. So many people worked on the video. And so many people are helping us spread the video. You need to be in an organization. You need to work with other people. You need to be patient with other people. You need to let other people make mistakes. You need to forgive other people when they mess up. Right? You need to be patient with other people. I mean, there's so many things that, again, and it's the best thing for mental health too, right? Isolation is the best way to cultivate mental illness, right? If you want to be depressed, if you want to be paranoid, you want to be delusional, just isolate yourself. There's a reason people go crazy in solitary confinement, right? There's a reason that's psychological torture. Right? And that when people have been in solitary confinement for a really long time, they come out and they can't make eye contact with you. There's a reason that it damages your brain. Humans are collective creatures. And, you know, if you want to be a stronger person who's more successful in life, join an organization. Join an organization and stick with it. Stick with it, even if you have a bad day, even if you get angry at somebody. I'm just telling you, right? Mental health is a collective thing. Anyway. Revolution in technology can bring revolution in culture. Well, yes, but there has to be a change in social relations. Yes, the economy changes first, but then after that, there has to be a change. There's a new class created, and then that new class takes power. It's a 3-stage process. You have a technological revolution, and then a social revolution, and then a political revolution is the last stage. It's a 3-stage process, right? That's generally how it's done. All right, folks. Well, listen, I am going to end the stream, but I need to tell you this. Please send this video to everyone that you possibly can, right? Here's the Twitter link. Send it to every Trumper family member you've got, every anti-war family member you got, anybody you know, send it to them. Send it to them, send it to them, send to them the Twitter link, right? We've got the YouTube link, right? We got a YouTube link. Please, 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 please send this YouTube link to everybody that you can, right? Send the YouTube link to everybody that you possibly can. Here's the YouTube link. Send it to everyone that you possibly can, right? We also have the text embedded on the CPI website. We have it on the CPI website. All right. So send the CPI website version of it. Send it to everyone that you can. This is the moment. We need to get our letter out there. Show that our message of anti-imperialism and optimism and growth, love of country, love of community, that there's an atmosphere, there's a layer of people. We got to get this out there. We need to get this out there. So share this, promote this, send it to everyone you know. Call up people, send them a personal message. Hey, John, I've been thinking of you. So, it's been a while since we talked, John, but, check out this video. A group of friends of mine and made this video. What do you think? Do what you got to do. Get this video to as many people as you possibly can. And the thing is, we made this video to be something you can show to somebody, right? This isn't a video about being a communist. This is a video about Trump and what he needs to do and why the American people voted for him. That's what this video is about. Get it to as many people as you possibly can. Spread the word. We need you to step up to the plate. We need our community to march forward. I will see you all, all CPI members, all of you join the CPI. I'll see you at the Zoom, the meeting that we have every Saturday. And then I will be back online tomorrow evening. Saturday night's a big night for our community. Dare to struggle, dare to win. I'm going to put on the closing music. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for being the amazing community that keeps me from losing my mind, keeps me believing and waking up in the morning. We have a job to do, and we're getting it done. We are getting our job done. Time to march ahead. New upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.